You're live on the JoyNews channel. This is the Pulse. More than 600 education civil society organizations are this afternoon petitioning the IMF board demanding the removal of what they say are restrictive conditionalities, which has forced government to cut key expenditure in some of the sectors. We have details coming up here on the Pulse. And it's just about 2 weeks to the NDC's flag bearership race, and the candidates have stepped up their campaign with a push for votes from the delegates. They've been crisscrossing the country and meeting delegates all across. Today, we put a spotlight on former Finance Minister Dr. Kwabena for one of the key figures going into the campaign. Fritz Balfour will be here with us as he tells us why Dr. Dufo is the preferred candidate for the NDC. And why is military spending on the rise in the world? We speak to our partners, Deutsche Welle, on a new report released in Europe this week. We have all of these stories coming up here on The Pulse. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Digni Lu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Don't forget that we're on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. My name is Blessed Sogah. We're back with the details shortly. Please stay. So we talk about the economy. In one of the biggest opposition to government's quest for an IMF bailout, a coalition of local and international civil society organizations operating in the education sector in Ghana has written officially to the board of the International Monetary Fund demanding the removal of what they call brutal expenditure cuts in Ghana's basic education sector, arising from Ghana's bid to meet conditionalities for its extended credit facility application. Already, the school feeding program is suffering, with many caterers suspending cooking due to the low payments, and in many cases, arrears dating back to several school terms. I will come to the CSO's petition shortly and speak to some of these concerned groups. But first, I want you to listen to my colleague Nana Yao Boache interacting with some caterers in the central region on the issues surrounding the school feeding program.
So we've been to some two public schools in Accra, and what we have picked up is that all two schools, the caterers in all two schools have reported to work. In fact, and where we are right now, we may not be able to identify the school because the officials that we have been speaking with would want it to remain so for the fear of victimization, what they call victimization, since they have decided to defy the odds of the national directive. But they explained to me that the reason why they have decided to defy the odds is for the interest of the students. The indication we have is that they have reported to school and they are feeding the kids. As you can see, this school we are right now is serving the children banku with okra soup actually. And so that's what they are feeding the kids. In the other school we went, they would not allow us to take any form of interaction or visuals from what is happening, but the assurance they gave us is that the caterers are actually at work and feeding the children. We can interact with some of the children to know what they feel, whether they actually know the caterers are not supposed to be at work at all, and they are what they feel about this whole dish that they have been.
Please, yes.
You have heard that they are supposed to be on strike.
Yes.
But are they on strike?
No.
Why?
Please, because the food that the caterers are cooking for us is not good at all. They don't bring for us yam and cotton breast stew. No meat, no anything, no egg. And the bonku too, sometimes the soup is water. They are not cooking it well. The beans and the rest of the food too are not good at all. I need they should cook for us yam and cotton breast stew.
The beans, they like bringing beans, and the beans too is like water. There's no oil on top, there's no plantain, and the rice too, the stew is too like water. There is no some kinds of things in the stew, so I like it to be comfortable so that I can eat it. And I don't eat it always because of how they cook it.
So today, what were you given?
I did not eat the food
Why?
because I've eaten. I've buy food and I've eaten. And because of how they do the food, I can't eat it.
But you know what they were supposed to eat today?
Yes.
What were they supposed to eat?
Today they ate banku. They don't bring jollof always. It's once a while. Then and the banku too, the soup is once a while that is thick. Always is too like water.
So what do they put on it? Is it fish or meat?
Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So today's own too had nothing on it.
Yeah.
It will affect me by not eating because my mom doesn't give me enough money to come to school. So by all means, I have to eat the caterer's food. So to really affect me.
So if you don't, your mom doesn't give you money, would that mean that you will not come to school at all, or you come and go hungry?
I'll come. But you know, some of my friends, if I ask them, they give me. So I can come and go.
So you just heard the bellboy ringing for break over as the students are entreated to go back to their classroom after being served with the school feeding food. So that's the situation here in some of the schools that we have been visiting around Accra on today, as the caterers, school feeding caterers nationwide, have declared a strike beginning today, Thursday, the 27th of April 2023, until their demands from government are met. For Joy News, my name is James Kwesi Aveji.
And James there, earlier I was saying Nana Wachi, but obviously it's James doing the rounds for us here in the Greater Accra Regional Capital. But the situation cuts across. In fact, checks from the Ashanti region proves that the situation is even dire, with some of the caterers refusing to cook owing to arrears. And the CSOs are beginning to get alarmed about this, writing to the International Monetary Fund over some critical government expenditure cuts. We'll speak to the CSO shortly, but check out what's happening in the Ashanti region.
I think it's 1 out of thousands, because looking at Ashanti region, we are 600 or more. And if you see one person or two people cooking, it means that it's 1 out of 1,000. And I also believe that those people, they have advantage over the poor women, because they know how to get their money, and that is why they are comfortable doing it. Otherwise, I don't see why they should cook.
Have you been able to confront these women, and what was their reaction? What did they tell you?
Yes, personally, I asked one woman, and she told me she can't wait to... She's having some stuff there, like she has some beans and then some rice over there, and she wouldn't want to throw them away just because we are on strike, so she would rather cook for the children, and that is why she's cooking. Oh no, a lot of them, majority, about 98%, they are poor. Those who can be on their feet and cook, they are about 2% out of the 1,000, and so we believe that there is something going on. Otherwise, I don't see why you will cook at this time. You don't know how much they are going to pay you. If you cook this time, it means that we are going back to the third term, the 3 terms. Because we have last year third term 1, we've cooked the first term, and now this is the second term, making the 3 terms. So are we now going by 3 terms before one term is paid? No. And I don't think those women really understand what is going on. So we can't force them. Oh, but you went around. You said you saw 2 people. And so if you have a whole Ashanti region and only 2 people are cooking, then it's not significant. It's not significant at all. And we thank God that. But we are pleading with our leaders that they should give these poor women a listening ear, because they are bitter. They are in pain. I know that teachers go on strike and they give them a listening ear. Why are they refusing to give these poor women a listening ear? I believe Elections are coming, and they will still need these poor women to go down there and do those donkey work. And I'm afraid.
So for the 4 weeks that you've withdrawn your services, you've not been invited to any quarters to listen to what you have?
Nobody. Only threatening. If you don't cook, we'll take the screw. If you don't cook, we will deduct it. And these are kind of words that we hear from them. But what pains me most is that those who are doing that, they are old people. They've enjoyed their life. And now they want to provoke the younger one and then go away. And I don't think they love even MPP. If they want MPP to be in power again, they will never treat these poor women this way. Because they are going to also treat them bad coming this election. They say it. And that is why some of us are voicing out for them to hear.
Okay, let's speak now to Leveline Konedu Asiedu, who's the National Coordinator for the Ghana CSO's platform on SDGs. Bernice Imperi Jechi is National Coordinator for the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. Thank you both for your time here on The Pulse. Let me start off with you, Bernice. You've seen the very rather sad state of school feeding here in our country, and I understand that you've been engaging government on this over the years, making a passionate appeal for reforms in how we approach this policy program. What more do you have to say about what's happening now? Okay, I will get to Bernice shortly, but Leveling, if you're with us, the petition has been sent to the IMF, but I'm wondering what you're seeking to achieve with this, knowing that the government of Ghana wrote its intent on how it intends to run the austerity plan with the International Monetary Fund. So it's our own doing, isn't it?
No, it is not our own doing. Good afternoon to you and your cherished listeners. This is the Ghana CSO's platform on sustainable development goals. And in our agenda with the IMF, we are seeking that the austerity measures, government is putting some medium-term plan in place between 2023 and 2025, and it is going to severely affect education. And from your reportage, we have realized that it is not rosy on the ground. And if we are to entertain budget cuts at the GDP and then the national budget, it means that we are severely going to undermine the quality of education, even the security of the children we are seeking to protect. And for whose interest are we seeking to do this? Because if we are going to, Ghana is going to the IMF to seek funding to ensure development or sustainable development, and then our future, the young ones that we are supposed to protect, are going to be exposed to the austerity measures through no fault of theirs, then it means that we are not going to do a good job. And civil society, this is what we seek to achieve, to let IMF look at the conditionality and then
Leveling? We're having some connection challenges.
The international policies.
Leveling, we lost you briefly on the point you're building about why there's a need for you to go to the IMF now.
Okay, sorry. I am saying that your reportage from the field shows that the ground is not rosy. The school children are not being fed properly. And it goes beyond just feeding. It also requires supply of books, that is goods and services. The capitation grant is in arrears. And if we are supposed to go through another set of austerity measures before we implement our program as a nation, then it means that we are going to put the children further at a disadvantage. And who are we protecting as a country? We have to ensure the security of the school-going children. We have to ensure that our education is well protected and it is of quality. So if we are going to do this and disadvantage another 25% of people who are already in dire need of quality education because they lack books for 4 years, we haven't had any books from government based on the new program, then it means that we are throwing our children to the wind, and we are saying that whatever can happen to them. That is why we are calling on the IMF through this press release.
Are you supported by the data now? And I'm asking that question because ever since the inception of the free senior high school, there seems to be some sharp focus and attention towards the second cycle institutions as compared to the basic or what you may call the pre-tertiary level. Is that not an indication that over the years, government intentionally has skewed its policy measure towards the free senior high school policy more, and it's not simply because we're going in for an austerity plan with the IMF?
Yes, this is what it has been, especially in the past 6 years. And we have been fighting at the ground to say that concentrating all government's efforts at the tertiary level, secondary level, is training and putting the basic level under further pressure. So this particular call, we are looking at basic school education. As for the free SHS policy, it is a policy that even Ghanaians don't want anything to happen to it. And I'm not too sure that government has intentions of scrapping it. So if we don't make noise, if we don't take pragmatic steps to sort of tie government's hands, it will continue to siphon the little funds that the basic school is getting, and it will affect the quality of education. And the future of Ghana isn't.
But I guess that's the import of my question. The data and what it tells us about government's approach towards expenditure at the basic level. The priority seems to be elsewhere. So why not ask government to, of course, try and make room for basic education in these allocations instead of asking a much bigger body, the IMF, to come through when our government could easily solve the problem?
Yes, it is. If government could easily solve the problem, we wouldn't be here speaking with the IMF. And we have gone to the IMF because they are setting out, they are asking Ghana as part of the program to come up with its own conditions. And if IMF goes ahead, and already it has indicated that our social interventions are not going to be affected by this program. And so if we have seen that government is going to cut our national budgets and then GDP for that matter, as far as basic schools is concerned, that it means that we have a reason to go to the higher authority. We did that with the COVID grant. And that was what compelled government to come up to make a statement about the situation of the COVID financing in Ghana. And so when we do this and the IMF is able to pick it up, we believe that our conditions that we are looking for will be met. And let me also add that Ghana's president, for a percentage of our national budget to be committed to education. And for that matter, our GDP, that is 15% of national budget. And if our African advocate or the ambassador, who is the president of Ghana, is cutting his own budget in his backyard, then it means that we are not setting any pace for the other countries to follow. So we have a call to go to a higher authority and make our demands known there.
Prior to your decision to appeal to the International Monetary Fund, did you engage government to at least know what their post-trial position was on this matter?
Cabinet, the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education has been engaged. We have engaged our development partners. We have engaged a host of stakeholders. So this is the highest that we want to escalate this issue, looking at the dire consequences that it has on the Ghanaian child.
Levelin, just stay on with us. Bernice Imperi-Jaji is National Coordinator for the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. She's also joining the conversation now. And Bernice, I was just hearing from Levelin on how you, the CSOs, have made countless appeals to the Ministry of Education. You've engaged stakeholders, and yet the situation is not improving. Should we look at a point where, of course, we try and get other stakeholders, PTA, the PTA Council and others to join in to at least find a solution to this crisis that we're seeing?
All right, thank you so much, Blessed, and all viewers watching us this afternoon. I think you've been part of our programming and petition in engaging the Ministry, Ghana Education Service, to make the basic education better one that we see now. So other engagements have been made. We haven't seen any progress in the area of basic schools. That is why we feel that other stakeholders should come on board. You know, the PTA was actually supporting our educational system to some extent, but there is an attempt to separate the teachers from the parents, that it should be parent association. The definition is even not so clear at the moment. So the community involvement in management of the basic school is becoming a challenge now. So we can equally go back to the PTA to see how they can contribute at their own level in making the basic school a better one, because we have declared everything free for the basic schools, yet the resources that is needed is not being provided. So this is where the PTA can come in. If we are able to explain to them some of the supports they can give to the basic school, I think we can see a better processes in the basic school that we are seeing now, because as it is now, every aspect of the basic school is not working. The infrastructure is very poor. We did an independent audit on school infrastructure. We shared with the ministry. We gave them the gaps and what can be done. They adopted to some extent. And then looking at teaching and learning materials, how can we develop a curriculum for 3 years and we don't have textbooks to support it? It is not too good. The capitation grant is in arrears. Even what we have is not adequate. School feeding program is not working. Teachers are currently on strike. So what are we doing to our foundational learning in this country? So there is a need to do further engagement with stakeholders to ensure that the basic school gets to a better stage than we are seeing.
And the point you're raising about the status of the PTA in our education system now, are you arguing that, for instance, given the current regime we have now, there's no clear policy direction or position on what role they play in our schools? Is that the case?
Yes, it is not very clear now, because I think there was a view that the teachers were trying to get parents to pay certain amount of money that they are not supposed to pay. So parents should have their own meeting, teachers should not be involved. But now I think the PTA were contributing some resources to the schools. They could come together to give some resources to the schools. So they should come out clearly with a policy on how the school should engage the teachers and even the community as well in supporting our basic schools.
But then going forward, looking at this, for instance, this appeal to the IMF, is that the only solution to the problem we have now, or there's a need to engage some more stakeholders?
It could be one of the solutions, because the IMF have asked us to come out with our own conditions, and they've told us that our social protection issues are not going to be affected. So if we should come out with our own conditions, so these are the conditions we are petitioning to the IMF, that it should be looked at in terms of our education, so that it will be part of the conditions, and once it comes out, it should be implemented.
The independent assessment you carried out, pointing out to some low level of infrastructure and other concerns that you pointed out, how is this impacting on the, first of all, the quality of products we're churning out from the pre-tertiary level, and by extension, the entire education sector?
All right. We are happy to say that when we presented the report to the Ministry of Education, there has been some attempt to find solutions to the infrastructure. The government has gone ahead to develop a national school infrastructure policy for the basic school, which is fantastic. But our challenge and our fear is that we have so many of these policies lying down, but its implementation is really a challenge. If you see the policy that has come out on the school infrastructure, it is good. looking at how the environment should be, being it friendly for all children with disability. It is very nice and beautiful, but then how are we going to implement it? That is the challenge. We have so much pro-poor educational policies.
Hello, Benis. We'll get back to Benis shortly. Leveling, if you're with us, the way forward now. Okay, I understand Benis is back, and then Leveling, just hold on for us a bit more. Benis, you're finishing up the point about what needs to be done. We lost you briefly. Leveling, let's talk about the way forward. In the meantime, Leveling, what's your expectation? What do you expect from government? At least they now know about the petition that you sent to the International Monetary Fund. In the meantime, are you expecting them to react,
yes,
respond, or perhaps adopt a new posture towards your concerns?
Okay, thank you. So we are expecting government to relook at his conditions that he's submitting to the IMF, and then on its own accord, align it to the policies, guidelines, and then the set targets that we want to achieve for education, especially at the basic level. So we would want to have some assurances, and beyond the assurances, we want to see an implementation in place that what we are calling for is going to be granted. We don't want to have the gentleman roundtable discussions anymore. We want to see action, and we want to see that our education sector is really at the place that it has to be in this time of difficulties. Otherwise, it means that we are fighting a lost battle, which civil society is not prepared to let go.
And as a coalition, how long will you hold on to this fight, and to what extent will you go to seek some answers?
So we have plans in place. We are mobilizing different coalitions to come out to have a stronger voice, because once we keep talking about this issue, and then at this point, I would really ask that the media rallies behind us. We have the facts, we have the figures, we know the implications of poor education, and we know the implications of these austerity measures going to have on our basic school education. And so we are going to make the noise. We are going to engage those are the helms of affairs. And as we have gone to the IMF, it means that if there is any other higher authority to go, we will still go. And we are not going to rest until we have seen that our request is being granted and our children are not going to be affected.
Grateful for your time, Leveling Asiedu, for joining us. We'll wait to see what the outcome will be. Benis, are you still with us? Your final thoughts on this? Benis, if you're with us, your final thoughts on this?
Yes, so for what we are saying is that we are not very happy with the way we are handling our foundational learning in Ghana. We are not happy at all in all aspects. So with the issues that we have outlined, just one, we will add that it's a plea, and we are begging that all stakeholders who want to see our foundational learning strong, to see our basic school to be one of the best, should come on board so that we get some of the issues that we are outlining addressed. That is what we talk about. Thank you.
Grateful. Benis Mperi-Jechi joining us. She's the National Coordinator for the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. Of course, there's a need for us to break down what's going on. And for those of you who do not have, of course, details of what it is that has been sent to the IMF, here are excerpts for you and the concerns being raised by civil society organizations. It's a letter actually addressed to the executive directors for the International Monetary Fund, of course, coming through from civil society organizations, petitioning the board over cuts in Ghana's basic education 2023 budget allocation. And it talks about the fact that the International Monetary Fund on the 12th of December 2022 reached a staff-level agreement with the government of Ghana, of course, on issues relating to the economic policies and reforms to be supported by a new 3-year agreement under the extended credit facility of about some $3 billion US. Ghana has since been working to meet the conditions precedent to a board level approval. Prior to the staff level management, civil society representatives in Ghana held some meetings with, for instance, the IMF team in Accra, during which the IMF assured participants of its commitment to, first of all, protect social protection and related budgets from expenditure cuts as part of the expenditure rationalization conditionalities. And specific areas of these assurances were in areas of basic education, the school feeding program in most of our in fact, all of our primary schools across the country, and cash grants to the vulnerable and the poor in society. However, it appears that through the medium-term expenditure framework presented to the IMF by the government of Ghana, including the expenditure allocations in the budget statement for 2023, the inception budget for the IMF program indicates that here are the cuts. First of all, there's going to be a 12% cut on the national budget allocation to the education sector for 2023. There's also going to be an 11% projected expenditure allocation to education in 2024 and 2025. 3% also taking place for GDP allocation to education in 2023. Then there's also the 2% GDP allocation to education in 2024 and 2025 respectively. There's also this leg of 25% decline in the projected expenditure allocation for basic school feeding program by 2025 or in 2025. So the allocations above are in sharp contrast with that minimum financing benchmarks established by the Global Partnership for Education. That's the need to have 15% of national budget and 4% of GDP allocated to education, which the majority of IMF board member countries agree to and support and have pledged to actually champion. So given this case, the case of Ghana, the President's Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was also selected as the Global Partnership for Education Financing Ambassador, responsible for encouraging other countries in Africa, for instance, to commit to at least 15% of their national budgets and 4% of GDP to education. And bearing this in mind and the effective and efficient financing, which is crucial for the attainment of the Education Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 4 in Sub-Saharan Africa, the 2023 education budget cuts have not only reduced education's share of the national budget and GDP, but CSOs are arguing that this will severely affect a lot of sectors by over 40% of the allocation of resources and some other sectors which they are concerned about. So these are some of the concerns being raised by the civil society organizations, which you heard from Benis Imperijechi and also Leveling joining us to have a discussion on this. You're watching The Pulse here on the JoyNews channel. When we get back, we'll get into politics. Dr. Kwabena Dufo says he's the best man to replace John Mahama as the flag bearer of the opposition party. But why give him a chance? We'll find out why. And you're welcome back. In just about 2 weeks, delegates of the opposition National Democratic Congress will have to vote for a new flag bearer to lead them into the 2024 general elections. There are 3 candidates seeking to lead the party into the elections. First is John Dramani Mahama, who's once been president and presidential candidate of the party. Kojo Bonsu is also there in the race, former mayor of Kumasi. And then there's Dr. Kwabena Dufo, former finance minister under the John Evans Tamils regime. Today, we put the spotlight on Dr. Dufo's campaign, and Dr. Dufo, who has been in the central, western, Bono and other regions as well. How has the campaign gone so far? What has been the response from the delegates? And is he the best choice going into this race? All these answers will be provided right here as we're joined in studio now by Fritz Powerful. And of course, if you're old enough to know about this. He is a veteran in my space, so it's a good time to be seeing you in the studio. Welcome to the Pulse. It's good to see you. You missed the job, partly.
Missed the job? I never left it.
But anyway, you're now, of course, supporting the campaign of Dr. Kwabena Duffuor. You've been around the country to a number of regions. The last one was in which region?
We've just left the Bono region. We're going into Kumasi for a day and then back to Accra, and then we'll go out again.
How would you describe the campaign trail so far? Has it been encouraging?
Yes, very encouraging. The response has been very good in all the places we've been to. We've done the Volta region, we've done certain parts of the Volta region, and we've done certain parts of Greater Accra. And as I said, we've been to the Central, we've been to the West, North, Western, and then we've been to Bono and Bono East. So I think it looks good.
What's been the message from the Duffuor campaign?
The Duffuor campaign is concentrating more on the grassroots. Dr. Duffuor is very much a grassroots person. It's empowering the grassroots. And we believe that as a party, we haven't done the grassroots as well as we should have done in the past. So we're now focusing on the grassroots and making sure that we'll empower the grassroots, which was the reason why the party was formed at the beginning. It was a party of the grassroots, party to serve as the voice for the voiceless. So we're going back to that, and that's what we've been doing. And so that's what he's been working on, and that's his message.
But the campaign itself has been criticized for how it's been rolling out this grassroots approach. You started off with the Ahunto project, for instance. That project, of course, regardless of how good the intentions were, met the displeasure of some leading figures within the party who raised concerns, for instance, about how it was being rolled out without the key involvement of the national leadership. Have you rectified?
I was very
have you rectified all of these issues
in the conversation about that? And I think that it was at a certain time because people favored a particular candidate and they put spokes in the wheels. But we're able to resolve it. It slowed down the process of us rolling out Ahunto in the various constituencies, and so far we've rolled out 62, and we're yet to roll out more. And so, therefore, that was only the point.
Are you reforming how that's being done now?
Well, the thing is that we've resolved the issue with the party. And so it's now to look at the logistics and see how best we can do it. Because, you know, it was also a guinea pig program. So we're now improving on how we're rolling it out.
Do you share the idea that this program was meant to give undue advantage, quote unquote, to Dr. Duffuor's campaign?
No, I think he thought of this way before he decided he wanted to stand. But yes, naturally you do things to your advantage. But the idea was that we had to empower the grassroots. One of the problems that we have in Ghanaian politics is that the grassroots are not empowered, and so they are very dependent on the largesse of various candidates and politicians. And we wanted to move away from that, to give the executives a chance to raise their own funds and in order to organize themselves. Because you hamstring them when they have to rely on the largesse that comes either from a member of parliament or from somewhere else. So it was also to create a certain entrepreneurial spirit within the party ranks.
When the vetting was carried out for initially 4 individuals, now it's been reduced to 3. The other individual, the businessman, Mr. Ernest Kobia, decided to pull out of the race. Then surprisingly, he said, I'm declaring my support for John Mahama because I believe he's the best bet to run the NDC.
Right.
Is that discouraging you as a campaign to say that, some people who were in the race already are declaring?
I am somebody who was with the party at the beginning.
Right.
I was part and parcel of the midwives who gave birth to the party. I've never heard of Kobia. I mean, for somebody who was supposed to be a potential presidential candidate. So he came out of the woods somewhere, somehow. And so for me, I mean, if you pledge your support to any of the candidates, that's not a real problem.
Yeah, I was asking because of the intention.
No.
He says, well, I wanted to run the NDC, but I feel John Mahama would do
well,
a better job.
I don't think he was savvy about the party. He didn't even know the people who were at the helm of the party. I think it was something that he thought was a good idea, and at a certain time thought that, no, this is not a good idea. And naturally, if he's gone to John Mahama, why should he discourage us?
Fritz, your campaign, you've been all across a number of regions. I'm sure there are more that you'll be doing, but at the same time, you have the likes of Kojo Bonsu and others going around as well. Where would you place the Dufo campaign in all of this? Are you in the lead or comfortable lead, perhaps?
I very rarely tend to do those kind of things. We're working very hard to win the flag bearership. All right, and the effort that we've got to put in to win, we're putting it in. I'm not going to do any comparisons because it most of the time it's unnecessary and it's self-seeking. So I'm not going to be self-seeking about it. We're working very hard. We're trying very hard to get to all the delegates that we can get to so that we can make a maximum impact at the polls.
Already, we've heard from the former mayor, Kojo Bonsu, as well, his campaign team raising the concern about why they believe that your previous set of leadership, or, phases that led you into the 2020 elections should give way for a new phase. And part of the reason, he says, was that the governing NPP has damaged or dented the image of John Mahama beyond repairs. Do you feel that's the main reason why he should give way for the likes of Dr. Dufo?
I try as much as possible not to be critical of any of the candidates. Right. Kojo Bonsu happens to be a very close friend of mine, and I work with John Mahama, and I've known him for years. The thing is that my beef with John Mahama standing is that we lost the election in 2016 by a wide margin, and we lost it again in 2020. In 2016, when we lost it, I actually supported the fact that John should step back and become a statesman, because right now you can see that we don't have anyone with the experience who is neutral or who can speak on behalf of the people of Ghana. At a certain time, we had Jerry John Rawlings, who was very much the conscience of the nation. Right. And I thought that John Mahama was well suited to be the conscience of the nation because he'd been through everything to the top. So I've never supported his comeback plans per se, but it's not out of any malice aforethought. Right. Okay, it's because I just felt that as a politician, as somebody who is also a historian, that would have been better for him to step aside. And therefore, when you go into a battle and you're battle scarred, the scars sometimes inhibit your the way you do things. But I have no objections to or any criticisms of him wanting to stand, except that that's my feeling, my personal feeling.
And your belief is Dr. Dufo would be the best to go. What are the strengths he's coming on board with?
The thing is, and I tell Ghanaians that the situation in this country is awful. You know, the economy is in a parlous state, and it needs to be fixed. And it's not only the indices, the economic indices, the fiscal indices per se, but the general society needs to have some kind of pluses or negatives, pluses or positives to help it move forward. And I think that Dr. Dufo has been confronted with some of those kind of problems in the past, and he worked admirably to resolve those problems. So I believe that since the basis of the whole thing is economic, we need somebody who's an economic guru to be able to...
And interestingly, he's been making some pronouncements on that. He says, for instance, that give me Ghana to run, I'll transform Ghana in 2 years. Yes. Even the IMF program we're running is beyond 2 years. What's the magic one?
Now, let me tell you something. In 2009, when the NDC won the elections and he was, it was the plans made, the Minister of Finance, a letter came from the IMF saying that the situation in Ghana was terrible and that then by the end of the year, 2009, our economy will be in dire straits.
Right.
Dr. Dufour is a consummate banker. He knows how to move money around. He knows workings of money internationally and nationally. And with the support and supervision of John Evans Tamils, they were able to turn the economy around in 18 months. The NDCs show it. The inflation rate, single digit. Ghana became the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. All right, and things in terms of employment fell, unemployment figures fell. So there's somebody who's tried and trusted. And in 1999, even before he became the Minister of Finance, he was named one of the top bankers in the world. So this is somebody whose pedigree cannot be doubted. I've known him since I was a young boy. I was in school with him in Prempeh College. And he's always been a very serious, a very dedicated, a very passionate person.
So, but what's the plan? How will it happen?
How will
2
it happen?
years to transform the economy.
You know, you don't give everything away, but from what I've gathered from him, he knows how to deal and negotiate the money markets to favor us in terms of our debts, debt refinancing and all that kind of thing. And the fact that we have to look at other things like employment or job creation. You understand, we've got to get away from the over-politicization of our social dynamics. And he's very much a person to the fore with that.
Political watchers are concerned that the NDC appears to be, if I may use the word, dispersing the energies you have. Dr. Dufour is a known financier of the party. And of course, that concern was raised, for instance, by the OT regional chair of your party, Japon Kujo, who says, well, Dr. Dufour comes from the Ashanti region, for instance. That's not a known base of the NDC. However, if you harness his strength and his capabilities, you could win more seats in the area and support, for instance, the John Mahama campaign, so you have a solid team going forward. Well, what's your thoughts on some of these propositions?
Japon Kujo, who I know, is a known John Mahama supporter.
Right.
So naturally, anything that he says would want to favor the John Mahama camp. But that is not what I believe and agree to. The thing is that you also have to look at the numbers. Okay, Ashanti is a very crucial area for in terms of the presidential and parliamentary elections.
Right.
It has one of the largest populations, and we have to make a dent in the NPP's position in order to win. And I think that somebody like Dr. Dufour will do that. And so those are some of the things that we consider. You know, we've got to get over 30% in Ashanti. And we need someone who can do that, because he's respected. Because the Ashanti constituency is a very traditional one.
Right.
They are very strong in terms of tradition, but they also respect a certain ability to deliver. And I don't think they are very happy at the moment with what is going on. So I think that we are in the right city care for that.
Beyond May 14 or 15, there's the NDC to keep. You have John Mahama, you have Mayor Kojo Bonsu, you have Dr. Kwabena Dufour.
Yes.
If he wins, I'm giving two scenarios here. If he wins, how is it going to work out the unity plan for the NDC? And if it turns otherwise, will Dr. Dufour support the others or anyone who may emerge victorious?
You know, at the close of every meeting he's had with the delegates, the first thing he says is that this is an internal election and we're brothers. I mean, the word, I can't say we're still brothers and sisters when it comes to the fact that we have no women standing, but we're brothers. And we have to respect each other. And so, therefore, that respect should also transcend into working together.
Right.
I have no qualms about working with anyone if that's the situation. But and I think that Dr. Dufour also believes it, and he says it's an internal fight. We should eschew insults and backbiting and the negativity, which is something that I've always supported. I've never ever liked,
politics of
and no, it doesn't serve any purpose. You know, I mean, if you're a supporter of a football team and you insult each other, that one, you know very well that the resolution is on the pitch.
Right.
Yeah.
So the NDC going into 2024.
Yeah.
You're mindful that the governing party, the NPP, says they'll be breaking the 8.
Yes.
Is that is that not threatening you as a political party?
Well, that's hyperbole. You know, the MPP are very good with slogans. They've always been. I remember 1992 when the political dispensation changed from quasi-military government to the present day, and then we're going into elections. I mean, they'd already come up with their slogans already, Ishi and the elephant and Radu Radu and all that. But at the end of the day, they were given a kick in the backside. The thing is, they're very good with slogans. They are also not easy to get rid of because they're in power. They're the incumbency. So we really have to work very, very hard, and we can't take anything for granted when in dealing with them. But I'm sure that once we're finished with our primaries, we'll work very, very hard to get rid of the MPP.
And this brings me back to the question before this one about unity and ensuring that there's partnerships amongst all of the camps. If John Mahama extends the invitation to Dr. Dufo to serve as his running mate, and I'm just also creating another scenario now, will Doc opt for that? I'm sure it's come up. I'm sure you've heard this from delegates sometimes.
I don't think that should come from me. That should come from Doctor. All right, because...
but you've been around. You've had delegates say some of these things that come together.
No, but the thing is that the first thing is to win the flag bearership, for us to finish the primaries, and then from there we'll look on and see what other permutations we can bring in. You understand? But I do not want to venture forth on that.
Because it's not feasible, or
no. Well, you see, you can never say never in politics, you know. But that is not something that I'm considering at the moment. It's far away from my mind.
Because you're setting Dr. Dufo win?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, now to others.
Wow.
Now let's talk about, of course, the NDC as we find it now. Some of your key members out on the fringes watching and saying, well, we want to be part of the NDC again. There's the likes of Kokua Nyidoho, there's the likes of the former First Lady, Nana Konadu Ajiman-Rawlings. Some have appealed, of course, we've heard from Zaneto, asked that let there be unification, bring everyone back if we want to forge ahead into the 2024 election stronger. What's your view on some of these
100%. Kokua Nyidoho is a very good friend of mine. His father is a man I admire greatly. I filmed him in Rwanda, where he was the deputy force commander, and he excelled. And so I got to know the family quite well. And so Kokua is very good material. He's boisterous, he's strong. Naturally, sometimes you've got to pull it back a bit from the fray. But he's good material. And Afo Nana Konadu, she's somebody I admire, I've worked with. And she was a bonus to the party at the beginning. Right through. I think that we didn't handle her well. When we had the contretemps and all that kind of thing. And I think that I would be at the forefront of bringing all those who had gone away back. Because parties are numbers and ideas. Disparate ideas can help in focusing and winning this country. One of the problems with Africa is that we have mismanaged our human resource base. We come into power and then you deem certain people as not, right and then you keep them away, and they may be the ones who could contribute to the progress of the society that they belong to. Everybody loves. Nobody has a monopoly on the love of Ghana. We all love Ghana.
So let's talk about Ghana.
Yeah.
You've seen the tenure of President Akufo-Addo,
Yes.
and in very recent times, the concern has been about illegal mining. That's dominated the conversation.
Yes.
Do you feel that we would ever win this fight?
Yes. Thing is that, you see, you have to have a certain sense of political history. In the 1800s in America, a guy called Jim Jeffries, chanced upon gold in California, all right, and started a movement actually that transformed America completely. Right. But for about the first 20 years or 30 years, there was lawlessness. And most cowboy films that you see stem from the California gold rush, which led to over 3-4 million people leaving the eastern seaboard and going into California, which is now one of the wealthiest states in America. The thing is how we handle it, all right? Now, what hurts me is that one of the reasons why Ghana became polarized politically was the cocoa industry. When Nkrumah decided to nationalize the cocoa industry, and a certain group of people thought it was different, and they formed a political front against it. That particular political dispensation is the political dispensation which has led to the galamsey in the cocoa areas. So we've got to really sit back and think and say, what are we doing to ourselves? You understand? Right. Yes, there's got to be illegal mining, but we've got to put together a system, and everybody's got to come on board. You can't say you are not going to use the NDC, brains and minds to sit down and think about it. We've got many reports on gold, because gold is very much part and parcel of our wealth and our resource base. Though I believe that the resource base that we've not worked on well is the human resource base. Right. So the report that came out has got to be looked at dispassionately. Unfortunately, we're approaching an election, so people are going to use it to settle
political
scores.
benefits.
But it's a very, very serious thing that affects the generations after us. And so therefore we've got to sit down and talk about it and say, how do we resolve this?
But the president is taking his position on this. He says, well, I don't see any evidence in what Professor Frimpong Boateng is talking about.
In some situations, and I beg to differ, that is a blinkered view. I try as much as possible not to but it's a blinkered view. There is a problem with galamsey. You look at our rivers, you look at our water bodies, you look at the social dynamics, the rural-urban migration, the fact that you've got people in the rural areas who cannot be employed because of the gains they made from illegal mining. And so therefore, the illegalities that are coming in, the fact that the security of this country is at risk, because it's not only Ghanaians who are doing it. People are actually coming in because gold has a certain allure that creates those kind of problems.
And at the core of this is the mass and teeming youth who do not have jobs.
Yes.
How's the Do For campaign planning towards the issue of unemployment, for instance?
He's very concerned about it, and he believes that we have to put into place the kind of infrastructure and the network for us to do so. He's very interested in agriculture and the benefits of agriculture, because agriculture is what has saved Ghana. We have gold, but the returns from gold are not maximized. Right. It's the same thing with oil. I think we're importing more oil than we're exporting.
Yeah.
And the only thing that we really have that is cocoa. And I think that we're looking at cassava, we're looking at rice, we're looking at all those things. So we're going to look at agriculture, but make it an attractive proposition for the youth, all right? And, when you have cheap food, right, and you've got the distribution system, the storage system, the marketing system, then people are not that angry people then have the patience to be able to think and look at other avenues in terms of resource mobilization in this country.
We'll have this conversation again. As we wrap up, is there any message to the grassroots of the NDC?
Yes. In 2 weeks, we'll be voting, the NDC will be voting for a flag bearer. And I would advise you very strongly to vote for Dr. Kwabena Dufour. I think he's the right prospect for that. Thank you. And let's do it peacefully.
Right, peacefully, as you say. Fritz Baffle, the senior member of the Dufour campaign. We stay on the NDC because the National Democratic Congress parliamentary candidate Vera Haibo is optimistic about toppling Railways Minister John Peter Amewu of the Hokwe parliamentary seat in the 2024 elections. There's more in this package for you.
The Hokwe constituency in the Volta region would witness a fierce competition in the 2024 parliamentary elections. The National Democratic Congress, NDC, sets out to wrestle the parliamentary seats it had occupied between 1992 and 2020 from the governing New Patriotic Party, NPP. The Railways Development Minister, John Peter Amewu, won the seat in 2020 from the NDC. Out of the 6 aspirants, Vera Haibo, who's a PhD candidate at the University of Glasgow in Scotland, believes she can win back the seat for the NDC.
I remember reading some textbooks some back that said that the cheche fly and the elephant. It was just that small cheche fly. That small cheche fly that killed the elephant. Entered the nose, he was unassuming, and by the time we realized, the elephant had fallen down and killed. I am that cheche fly. And I am making a promise to the Hokwe NDC members that we are taking back the seat from the MPP. First of all, that seat is not for them. We only hired it for a period. Their rent is over, and we will not renew it. And they can see it. He won power. He was an energy minister before he started putting people into apprenticeship and offering people jobs. But I have started it now. By giving them the apprenticeship, they are already, having a source of livelihood. And also with the agricultural project I have come in, I haven't heard of him doing any agricultural program. Pardon me, but I have put this program in place, and it is something that is going to continue for a very long time. However, it is not all our secrets to winning the seats that I have to say on air. So I am going to preserve the very important and salient ones, and when the time comes, he would know that he has actually been beaten by a cheche fly.
Ms. Haibo therefore entreated the delegates to vote for her to unite the party for victory in December 2024.
For me, development is my goal. Immediately I take up the seat, it is all going to be development. Every life will be impacted. In fact, Hokwe will become like a small Glasgow. Glasgow is where I am schooling. Hokwe will become like a small Glasgow, and I am a unifier. When you look among all the aspirants, I'm the only one all the aspirants are able to approach, because we need unity in order to win the seat back. And I want to assure them that if they select me, I will unite everybody. We will have a united front to claim back the seat from the MPP.
Frank Selom Ankuche, Christine Afifiakwe, Theophilus Kojo Jimegan, Thomas Wolanyo Chekpo, Kondobre Victor Herman, and Vera Haibo would battle it out on Saturday, May 13, 2023, when the NDC heads to the polls to elect parliamentary candidates and a presidential candidate for the 2024 general elections. Fred Kwame Asari, Joy News, Hokwe.
The Red Move, Member of Parliament for the Obom Domiabra constituency, so far Karen Akwaku, is leaving the constituency. She won by close to 10,000 votes to contest the Ayasu Central seat. She's been explaining why.
Sophia Karen Akwaku is a first-time member of parliament who won her current seat, the Obom Domiabra constituency, with almost 10,000 votes, and a constituency that is traditionally NDC. The party has won that seat every single election since it was created in 2004. It therefore came as a shock when Sophia Akwaku decided to leave that seat and run for Ayawaso Central. She says the decision is based on the desire to win the seat for the NDC.
The reason why I'm moving from Obom Domiabra to come and help Ayawaso Central is because we have a hung parliament. We have a hung parliament. You know, if we go to parliament now, we have 20 women on the majority side, 20 women on the minority side, and 117 on the majority for the men, and 117 for the men on the minority side. We cannot come back to power with a hung parliament. So everybody is protecting his seat. But you need one person who will sacrifice himself for a party. I decided that Obom Domiabra has been NDC's safe seat ever since that constituency was carved. So I can leave that constituency and come and support Ayawaso Central, since we know that that constituency is winnable. So my reason for moving is that I want to add one seat to the minority seat in Parliament.
The Ayawaso Central seat has never been won by the NDC. It is currently being occupied by Greater Accra Regional Minister Henry Kote. It is near impossible task, some analysts have said. But Sophia Karen Akwaku says she is confident she will win the seat for the NDC for the first time.
Because those who have worked, my predecessors who have gone, they've all done what they have to do, but still we are not taking the seat. And winning election is about strategy. So I have my strategy. When I get to the ground, I'll put my strategy on the ground. Thank you. It's an election. I want to take the seat, period. When I finish taking the seat, we'll think about the policies. Thank you.
The MP has a message for delegates.
Ayawaso Central has been in opposition for almost 28 years. This time around, they should give me their support, and I'm going to deliver the seat for them. Besides, me, Sophia Akwaku, going back to Parliament means that I am taking the constituency 12 years ahead than somebody who is coming new, who is going to begin from class 1.
Despite being a first-time MP, Sophia Akwaku is a key member of the Women's Caucus in Parliament, especially on the NDC side. Political analysts and watchers will be watching how this huge political gamble will turn out. Reporting for JoyNews, Kweku Asante.
Away from politics, Minister for Lands and Natural Resources Samuel Abujinapo has indicated that the president is still very committed to the fight against illegal mining, despite recent allegations of high-level political interference. He insisted that the president still has the backing of all of the stakeholders in his quest to deal with the issues relating to the Galamsey menace. He was speaking to the press at the National Youth Conference on National Resource and Environmental Governance. There's more in this report by Esther Nkrumah.
Conference on Natural Resources and Environmental Governance is aimed at including the youth in the planning, implementation and evaluation of environmental issues. Executive Coordinator for the Youth Network for Development, Chibeze Ezekiel, emphasized the need for promoting public education to raise awareness on the importance of preserving our natural environment.
I think it has to do with the level of awareness or education. Because if people are told to plant trees and they don't see the value or the importance, then they will not be motivated or encouraged to plant trees. But if you're able to engage them, let them understand why they must plant trees, I think that will go a long way to get the youth involved to plant trees.
Addressing the media, the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo, who was the keynote speaker for the event, assured that the government's continuous commitment to the fight against illegal mining is unwavering.
The president will not countenance any interference. If there's one person who's been committed to this fight against illegal small-scale mining, it is President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. I've worked with him closely, and I mean closely. And I do know that his commitment to this fight is totally unflinching. And indeed, it will be scandalous, and it will be far-fetched, and it will be impossible for President Akufo-Addo to interfere in the fight against illegal small-scale mining. Indeed, on the contrary, he is the man who's giving me all the courage, who's giving me all the strength, who's giving me all the backing and authority and mandate to go frontal.
Meanwhile, NP for Medina, Francis Xavier Susu, indicated that the government is being hypocritical in its fight against environmental degradation.
Promises made by government and commitment made by government must be backed with action. Sometimes it is quite disappointing to know that government can make very beautiful commitment to, afforestation, make very beautiful commitment to protection of the environment, and yet at the blind side of all Ghanaians, they become the leaders of the environmental degradation. For me, that is duplicity, that is hypocrisy, and that is bad faith. That is not taking the people of Ghana seriously.
The conference served as a platform for young green entrepreneurs to showcase their innovative climate and waste management solutions to attract partnerships and investments.
What are these products made from?
They are made up of used materials. I don't call them waste. Used materials like cardboard, old newspapers, plastic bottles, disposable spoons, champagne bottles, seashells. Yeah.
Can you walk us through your products?
I'm Jessica from EcoNexus Ventures, and then we are a waste to energy company. We convert agro waste to ethanol fuel for cooking. So we have here the ethanol fuel. We call it Eco Gel, yes, because it's quite jelly-like. So this is made from pineapple waste, cashew apples, and then sugarcane molasses. So this fuel comes with its specific stove. So without the stove, you can't use the gel. Without the gel, you can't use the stove.
The theme for this year's National Youth Conference was centered on promoting effective youth participation in governance of the natural resources and environmental sector. Esther Nkromet's report read to you.
And a safe and health working environment is a fundamental principle, and the need for a right at work. Now, that's the pivot which this year's World Day for Safety and Health at Work is being celebrated. The day is marked across the world, including Ghana. So let's have a conversation with the experts from the Ghana Institute for Safety and Environmental Professionals. They're joining us. We have Seth Koison. Seth Koison is co-founder of the Ghana Institute of Safety and Environmental Professionals. We also do have that's Damwa Emmanuel Nyako, who's the Health and Safety Advisor for Drill Masters Africa Limited, Goldfields Damang. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Emmanuel, it's a good time to start with you because you are equally on the fields almost all the time. Safety and wellness, we very much underestimate that. For those who work, say, in the strict corporate space, we feel that, it's a normal thing. So why be concerned about issues of safety? It has to do with those of you who are always on the field. Is that a right notion to always have? Yes, you could start with us.
Well, it is a right notion to have. Indeed, work involves man interacting with machines, material, and the environment to survive. And so if the survivor can result in the person losing his life, then it is an irony. Yeah. So safety indeed should be on everybody's mind,
regardless of the profession in which you find yourself. But how about the day itself? How are you using that to create awareness for people working all over the country to know that safety is indeed something we should be concerned about?
All right, so the ILO states 28 April every year for us to celebrate or create awareness on health and safety. And so particularly this year on today, Friday, across institutions, not only in the mining and oil and gas sector, across all institutions, we are telling people that, look, we need to work safe. The ultimate is for us to go home, to meet our families and our loved ones, safe and healthy every day. The work area or the work environment should not pose any threat or whatsoever to us. All the prevailing hazards or the prevailing risks should be controlled or they should be minimized.
What's the main focus for this year? What are we reflecting on as a theme and for this whole celebration?
Okay. This year, the bar is being raised to see health and safety as a fundamental principle and a right. So that
also it's a right?
Yes. It's a right. Everybody has a right to live. And if you are working, it is all about surviving, like I said. So it is a right. And so if you should go to workplace and the workplace will now become injurious to your health or yourself, then your right is being trampled upon.
I see.
And so this year, the emphasis is on the fact that it is a right.
How do we assess that? Because for some, even giving you the job alone is an opportunity. So why complain about even your safety in the first place? What's the advice to workers, generally, employees across the country?
All right. And so, you know, workers, we are being employed by our employers, right? And so once we get on board or we get into the institution or the organization, we are being inducted as to how to go about things. During the induction, it's a sort of training or the onboarding process. And so we are supposed to comply to the minimum health and safety requirements at work. The employer will tell you this is how we go about things here. The employer will clearly stipulate how their regulations or their policies in terms of health and safety is. It is our duty or the onus is on us to comply to these regulations. The basic thing, like I said earlier on, is for us to work safe, go home to meet our family and our loved ones safely. And if we follow these procedures or policies, we can work safe and go home.
How about policy reforms? What policy reform should we be looking at to give further boost to this need for right to safety at work?
Well, Ghana has come far. We have fragmented organizations looking at areas of safety, but we are looking at where we have a one-stop shop. We are looking at a coordinated approach, and that's where we are pushing for the OSH law to be passed.
Give us a little breakdown on that one.
Yes, so we are promoting and advocating that the nation comes to grasp with the fact that the human resource is the most important asset to have. And for that matter, the nation should demand accountability from organizations to make sure the environment of the workplace is safe for everyone to work there. And it is actually a right. And so in Ghana, we are looking at a point where all these fragmented organizations can be coordinated to have one-stop shop.
Okay, so we have a comprehensive law that would deal with that.
Yes, but it's not yet passed. It's not yet passed.
How urgent? I mean, must we push for this law to be passed?
Indeed, it's very, very urgent. And you see, when you look at our security setting in Ghana, we have the Army, the Air Force, but we still have the coordinating activity being done by national security. But when it comes to safety, it's not like that. Everyone sits in his silo, his corner, doing his own little thing, and it's like so fragmented. And so it's very urgent. And Ghana Institute of Safety and Environmental Professionals is advocating and promoting that this bill, which we all helped to draft, which is lurking around corridors of the government, should see the day light for us to all be safe.
And safety itself at work, is it just the responsibility of, say, your employer, or it goes both ways?
All right, so basically it's a two-way affair.
Right.
The employer has his or her responsibilities, and you, the employee, you also have your responsibility to, do and all that. For example, at the workplace, you are given a PPE by an employer. That's a personal protective equipment, and you're supposed to use it. And then you refuse to use them. Probably you might be exposed to any of the prevailing hazards or the risks at a working environment. And so if indeed it's a collective effort by both the employer and the employee to work safe, then we, the employees, we also have a responsibility.
How about creating a system where we fuse this whole safety thing into even the conditions of service? Is that too far-fetched? Why not move towards that angle where, of course, it's part of your condition, safety and all of these issues that you're pushing for are factored into conditions of service?
At the work environment, we have welfare facilities. It's a whole broader spectrum. It should be provided by the employer. For example, the sanitary conditions, your safe working environment itself, and even the right and then the principles that we are talking about is, we are supposed to work in a safe environment where there's no discrimination whatsoever. The abolition of child labor, main communals commission clearly stipulates all these requirements. And so it's a collective effort, like I said earlier on.
And let's look at the way forward in the future. What would you want to urge workers and even employers as well to be on the lookout for as to create more awareness on this safety at work?
All right. And so both employers and employees should not put safety on the lower side, like my colleague said. It's something that should be spearheading almost every project. And we say safety is a priority, it's our number one priority. If you go to other mining jurisdictions, like gold fields, where we are mineral exploration and drilling contractors, we say if it is not safe, we will not mine. So every employee has the right to tell the supervisor or the superior, the working environment, look, it's not safe. And I'm not going to work until the prevailing conditions are made safe, until the hazards there are brought to the minimum level, or until we reduce these very hazards. Because I love my life, I want to work safe and go and meet my family safe.
And you also have a final word?
Yeah, like you said, the employer has a responsibility of duty of care.
Yeah.
The employee too, you are responsible for your own safety and the safety of others that you work with. But it's, when you leave man on his own, he will do
we'll do our own things.
So we need institutions which can ensure accountability and make sure if you don't do the right thing, and like you're saying with HR, yes, we have a law. The Factories and Inspectorates Act is there, has what is stipulated for you to
ensure that you do
as an HR person, if you are giving somebody an appointment, what you are supposed to put in there is there. But I think we have it nice on paper, but the enforcement,
as always, Ghana for you. But we pray for the best, definitely. Thanks to Seth and Emmanuel for joining us here. You're watching The Pulse on the JoyNews channel. We'll be back shortly with more stories. Please stay. Welcome back. Chief Executive Officer of the Jospon Group of Companies, Dr. Joseph Sogah has reiterated the need for Ghana to look within for solution to its problems. According to the business mogul, the pressure on the economy will ease when the country produces what it eats and uses locally. JoyNews Prince Kwame Kuduga has more in this report.
It's the potential for self-sufficiency in rice production. Ghana has been importing a significant amount of the rice it consumes. The Jospon Group of Companies is looking to make Ghana rice self-sufficient. The Asian African Consortium and the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research is collaborating to make this a reality. The two organizations have signed a memorandum of understanding to deepen research in the area. Mrs. Adelaide Araba Ijapong is the Chief Executive Officer of the Asian African Consortium.
We don't want to go wrong with what we want to do. It's a great area for Jospon Group of Companies. This is not what our daily business, what we do regularly. And so because it's a great area, we want to start it well. As a result of that, we are partnering with academic institutions, and then when it comes to research and development, innovation and technology, we know CSR is the authority. And so we can't go wrong by partnering with them or signing an MOU with them. As a result of that, today we have authenticated this on paper. It is done so that we can get the technical know-how, the expertise, all the scientists that they have. We are expecting that the knowledge that they have acquired in research and development, they will relay same to Jospon in the great area of rice production that we want to embark on.
CEO of the Jospon Group of Companies, Dr. Joseph Siao Ejapong, says it is imperative for Ghana to look for local solutions to local problems.
Ghana is in crisis. We are in crisis now that all our financial issues are in crisis. Inflation is about 59%. One of the driving forces is food, which is 57%. As we speak today, we are importing tomatoes, we are importing onions, we are importing soya, we are importing maize, we are importing rice. And all this, CSIR has their fullest competency of doing it. And that's why we have come to collaborate with you that this crisis, we must deal with it. We have the men, we have the professionals, we have everything here. When we traveled to Thailand and we did the research, we saw that we are on the right path. Ghanaians are on the right path. Every yield that they have achieved can be achieved here. We even have better soil than them, better climate, rainfall pattern, everything than them. We saw that the difference was just a little.
The Director General of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Professor Paul Bosso, assured the center has a strong base and the resources to support industry.
Agriculture is one of our strengths. In fact, about 7 of our 13 institutes focus on agriculture. And then we have the Agricultural Institute. We have Crop Research Institute that focuses on crops. And then in between that, we have the Environmental Institutes, water, forestry. We have also the Processing Institute. We have the Industrial Research Institute, which is into agricultural machinery design and fabrication. And then the Information and Policy Research Institute. So we have a very broad base, and we are strong on the ground to support industry as we are witnessing today.
Prince Kwame Kudegan's report read to you.
Let's take you elsewhere. Worldwide military spending, according to a new study released in Europe by leading global security think tank, reached a record high in 2022. The increase was especially evident in Europe. Joining us now for more on this issue is DW correspondent Thomas Power, who's having details of what this report is talking about. Thomas, what are the main takeaways from this global study?
The main takeaway undoubtedly is the fact that despite economic uncertainty, despite the fact that many countries around the world are facing rising inflation or big economic problems, military expenditure last year, 2022, actually grew to what the authors described as record highs. The US and China continue to be the countries with the highest military expenditure in the world, but the increase is also very pronounced in other parts of the world, in particular here in Europe, unsurprisingly because of the war in Ukraine. So both Russia and Ukraine registered a high increase in military spending last year, but also other countries in Europe that were indirectly affected by the war in Ukraine, like, for example, the United Kingdom or Germany. So all in all, a picture that shows that countries, according to the authors, are thinking more and more about themselves, about their own security at a time of global uncertainty in terms of security and also obviously military issues as well.
I see. And what does the report say about, for instance, the increase in Europe and particularly Germany?
Well, Germany obviously has played a very important but also a very controversial role in the last year since the war in Ukraine began. It's meant a very big change in German political and security issues. In fact, the German Chancellor at the time, Olaf Scholz, so immediately after the war in Ukraine began, described it as a Zeitenwende, so as a change of era in German foreign and security policy. That meant also a big investment in terms of military spending for military forces here in Germany that had been understaffed, under-equipped and had faced major problems. Now, for some, this has happened too slowly. So basically the implementation of that change of era, and much of that implementation will actually be seen in future studies on military spending. But for those who are in favor, for those who see this favorably, this change of era in Germany is certainly a step forward at a time of increasing global insecurity.
And for the citizenry itself, back in Germany, how are they receiving this news?
Well, I think in Germany there's now a broader understanding that after many years of Germany's military facing very significant problems, that it was time for the German government to really put some money into it, to really spend big when it comes to increasing Germany's defense capabilities. Now, if we speak specifically about sending weapons to Ukraine, which, by the way, is another very controversial issue here, You can see recent polls revealing that around half of German people actually see this as being appropriate, but there's also a big number of those who see this skeptically, and this is probably related to the fact that many are concerned about how the war in Ukraine could end and whether sending more and more weapons to Ukraine could actually make the conflict even bigger instead of helping to resolve it. So there is a big debate here in Germany, which, by the way, is not only felt here in Germany, it's also a debate that we can clearly see in other parts around the world.
Let's leave this here for now. Thomas Barrow with our partners, DW. This evening at the Royal House Chapel International, it will be a showdown at the church. Of course, it's all about the joy corporate worship now. Adding to the excitement will be a host of other corporate institutions representing, of course, you know my take on this, and it's just the right place to be this evening. So listen to what's likely to come your way tonight.
And the one who walked through the gates of Oyedom and come into this place on the 28th, let that person's life never be the same again. Those who come sick must return healed. Amen. Those who come broken must return put together. Amen. Those who enter shattered must live with hope. Those who come weak must return with strength. Those who come poor must return blessed. Those who come without hope must live with hope in Christ Jesus. Thank you for answered prayer. And the saints of God, clap your hands and shout a big amen.
Hello people, my name is Celestine Donko, and if you are a corporate fellow in Accra, Ghana, listen guys, Joy FM is bringing to you corporate worship tomorrow 6 p.m. at Royal House Chapel. That's 28th of April. And I want to encourage you to make the time to come. Join us, worship, and express your gratitude unto God for watching you drive in and out of your home to work all the time. Bible says in Psalm 103 verse 2 says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits." Come join me, sing and praise and dance. And who has the final say? Mawu jojoy anokwaleto. See you tomorrow.
Shalom people of God, how are you doing? My name is Emoji Music. On Friday, by the grace of God, I will be with you at Royal House Chapel, time 6 p.m. for the Joy Corporate Worship. If you're a company, if you're a family, and you want somewhere to worship on Friday night, that is this Friday, I urge you to be at Royal House Chapel, where we are having the Joy Corporate Worship, and I'll be there live with my team to lead you in worship and praise, and I believe your life will never be the same. See you this Friday at 6 p.m. God bless you.
Will be a very impactful moment. You want to be there at Royal House Chapel for more on the Joy Corporate Worship. That's all we have for you here on The Pulse. I'm Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. Lots of stories there to catch up with. Next.